Hello Admirals and welcome back to my channel where I talk to you about Battlefleet Gothic, the space fleet game based in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about Necrons in Battlefleet Gothic. These ships and the fleet list associated with the Necrons came out in the Yellow Armada book, and they allowed you to have, they had a battleship, cruiser and a couple of different light cruiser and a couple of different escort squadrons. They have a bit of an unfair stigma attached to the Necron fleet. They are considered by many to be overpowered, and in some ways that is kind of true. They do have really good weapons. They're very, very fast and maneuverable. They also have very good armour, and they have some inbuilt save mechanics into their fleet that lends itself to a fleet that can stick around and stay in the fight really, really well. However, they are lacking in a few areas as well, which we will mention in part of this starter fleet video with you all. And so, yeah, are they as overpowered as everyone says they are? Admirals, here you go, a Necron 1500 point fleet. This fleet comes to 1495 points. So you can see that there isn't a lot of ships in this fleet, and typically you'll find that with the Necrons they are expensive ships. But what we have here is a little bit of a mix for you. You have a Tomb class battleship here. We have some Scythe Cruisers, a Shroud light cruiser, and we have some Jackals, a squadron of Jackals, and Dirge, squadron of Dirge Escorts. So this gives you a nice little mix. I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of the Shroud, personally, and I'll go into that in a little bit. It's definitely, I think, the weak link in a Necron fleet. So I said this fleet gives you a little bit of a spread of anything, but if you kind of want to have maybe a little bit more sort of punch in the fleet, you can always go for another Scythe Cruiser by taking out the Shroud and maybe one of the squadrons, so you can always bring in another one of the Scythes. They are very powerful cruisers, and pound for pound pretty much can take on anything else in the game in their tonnage, and sometimes can even take on two other cruisers at the same time. They are good ships. But as I said, you've got two cruisers, a light cruiser, two squadrons of escorts, and a battleship. And this gives you a really good basis for any of your games, realistically. The reason why Necrons are often considered overpowered are essentially because they have really, really good weaponry. And they are kind of the fleet that was made to hate on Eldar, because all of their weapons basically bypass the Eldar hollow fields and shadow fields that are inbuilt into those fleets. So in the rules for Necrons, it specifically calls out that their weapons don't have saves with those particular hollow fields and shadow fields. So they're pretty mean against Eldar, to be perfectly honest. And they're also incredibly fast. Like for instance, that Scythe class cruiser can travel at 30 centimeters, and that's just quick for a cruiser, to be perfectly honest. Their Jackals can travel at 40 centimeters. Those escorts are just really, really quick. And then I think the fastest escort potentially in the game, the Dirge, can travel at 50 centimeters. 50 centimeters. That's just crazy stuff. So this fleet is incredibly fast. So and they also get additional help when they go on all ahead full. So in particular scenarios where you're trying to cross the board, like blockade runs or something like that, they can just get across the board really, really easily. And so their maneuverability is a huge win for them, along with that weaponry. The other thing that a lot of people consider with these fleets to be so overpowered is because everything has armor 6, even the escorts. And now they have special rules around it, but that armor 6 alone, with their reactive hulls, means that they're really hard to hit, to be perfectly honest. Now they don't have shields, but don't underestimate the fact that everything needs a 6 to hit. And then inbuilt into that, they have saves. So, for example, the escorts have a 6+ save inbuilt into them. The cruisers have a 5, and so on. So having that sort of feel no pain, for want of a better term, like in 40k, automatic save allows them to really stay in the fight. So that armor plus the save can really keep them in there. And I would say the Tombship is one of the most powerful battleships in the entire game. It's 500 points, but it's well worth those 500 points. And the fact that you can take one of these if you just take one Scythe means you can put an incredibly powerful platform into your fleet with very little difficulty, to be perfectly honest. Unlike other fleets where they have to meet some pretty hefty conditions to get their sort of heavy hitters into the fight. They're really good. It's a really good fleet. But overpowered? I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think this fleet is overpowered, firstly, I'm not aware of any Necron fleet ever winning a tournament, for a start. And there aren't many tournaments in BFG, but I've never heard of them winning one, right? So that's a start. However, there are a couple of things that they sorely lack. So the shields do matter. But the other thing with it is that when they brace for impact, if you can get one of these ships to brace for impact, while their saves improve, they get a 2+ save when they brace for impact. That actually then reduces their armor down from 6 everywhere to 4. So suddenly you're hitting them much easier. Yes, they get a too much save, but you're hitting them much easier. So this is one of the fleets where you actually, for once, want to fire your lances at them to try and to get them to brace. And then fire your weapons batteries, because you are not then hitting on 6s anymore on their armor, you're hitting on 4s. So you certainly want to... So that is something that the Necron Admiral really does need to think on, making them think about when to brace and what weapons you fire is a very critical juncture for this, and to force them to do things like that. And the other big downside to the Necron fleet, which you need to be aware of as a Necron Admiral, is that none of them have ordnance. No torpedoes, no bombers, no fighters. They do have something equipped on their ships called the Star Pulse Generator, which can hit ordnance when fired, but they don't have that opportunity to have ordnance superiority on the board. So if you can get a lot of ordnance and start hitting them and start wearing them down, it can really overwhelm this fleet very, very quickly. So you've got to be very aware as a Necron Admiral and use that mobility to really avoid a lot of ordnance. Otherwise, that you could get yourself into some sticky situations there. But the major reason why I don't consider this fleet, or the Necron fleet in general, to be overpowered is because of their unique victory point conditions, which you can find in the Armada book. And what's critical about this is, in the lore, Necron ships don't want to stick in the fight. They want to run away, and it says in this bit they want to run and fade out. And they have some serious consequences for when they actually do. And if you can actually cause a capital ship to be destroyed, regardless of whether it becomes a Hulk or not, you get 200 or 300% of the victory points. And that alone can win you the game. If you manage to destroy a Scythe, or even a Shroud or a squadron of the Escorts, which are quite expensive, you suddenly are in a very, very strong position to win the game. And that is one of the reasons why I consider the Shroud to be a bit of a liability in this fleet, because it only has 4 hit points. So a couple of shots can cripple it very quickly, and even though it's beautiful, and I do love it, and it would be great to run loads of these, because it would look cool, you can quickly cripple one of these, and suddenly you're giving up quite a lot of victory points. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think they're totally overpowered, as many people consider them to be. That victory point condition really, really results in them having to really think about what you're keeping in the fight and what you're not, and you could be fading out. And even if you do fade out a completely fine ship, you're still giving out points. So it's very tempting as a Necron player, with the 6 armor and the provisions that they've got, is to throw it into the fight very, very quickly. And if one ship gets overwhelmed, you can quickly get behind on victory points. So it seems like you want to brawl with them, but I would say you want to be cagey with them, in my view. You want to be able to have really strong maneuverability, get them around the board. They're strong enough on their own to operate on their own. They're fast enough to work in flanks, and they're fast enough to get even if the fleet becomes broken up, they're quick enough to get back together again to support each other. So I would say keep that in mind when you're playing as a Necron fleet. This is probably one of the more advanced fleets, if there are such things in Battlefleet Gothic. You probably don't want to be playing Necrons as your first fleet in the game, similar to like Tyranids, or even something like Craftworld Eldar. These are kind of the more advanced rules, advanced fleets. Because there are some very unique mechanics to them, if those sorts of things occur in this game. But yes, they are quite powerful. I will be giving them a go soon, I think. Someone wants to play against the Necron fleet. But there you have it, folks. Starter fleet for the Necrons. 2 cruisers, a battleship, a light cruiser, and a squadron of escorts each. There you have it, Admirals. 1,500 point fleet list for Necrons. They're a fun fleet. They have very unique mechanics. They are a strong fleet. That's not they're not overpowered though. I'm not going to say they're overpowered, but they are a powerful fleet. And in the right hands, if you're an experienced wargamer, they can become really, really powerful, really, really good. And certainly in some scenarios, if you're not just playing smash 'em up, fleet on fleet engagement stuff, if you're playing some of the in scenarios where speed is critical, they're going to do really, really well, and you're probably going to end those games pretty quick. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys my tomb ship, to be honest, which is a 3D print from, unfortunately now, Shapeways, which is now gone. But I love this little ship that I added stuff to. And someone mentioned it on Discord the other day. They'd sort of seen it and were keen to see it. So this is a count as tomb ship for me as well. And I love it to bits. I think it's a wonderful ship. But there you have it, folks. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or ideas or what you've done for Necrons and the Necron fleet, let me know in the comments. And I think we're on to Rogue Traders maybe next. Rogue Traders.